would you tell me your views on what design thinking is?
Well, for sure, Yuki. Well, design thinking is now a very consolidated and known practice in business and in academia. And a lot of people might think about design thinking with associated with IDEO, the famous company that was born in the United States from David Kelly and then Tim Brown, and they sort of brought design thinking really to the best knowledge of many people, of a lot of businesses and a lot of research settings. Design thinking actually has probably is rooted, has its foundations in the early days after, let's say, World War II, when let's say in the 50s and 60s there was really an interest in bringing together, let's say, a more arts and craft approach with engineering approach. And from research I've done with some colleagues at Stanford, well, there were some evidences that already in the 60s there was a sort of seed, an initial stage of the design thinking method and approach. Now, it was not probably called design thinking back at the time, but was really the moment when what we know today as design thinking was born. Of course, there has been an evolution in the communication of the design thinking method throughout the years, throughout these decades. But and as we know now, since the 90s and 2000, design thinking became really popular, let's say. But yeah, I have to say that the roots are a bit older than, you know, the past 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's there is quite a long history behind.
Yeah,
as we might not know. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So what do you think about the impact or significance that Stanford's model, which consists of like 5 steps? What's the significance of the dividing the history of design thinking in that 5 steps, do you think?
Well, I think, you know, in different design approaches and design thinking as well, there is really there is normally an idea of summarizing the steps or the process or what designers should do with a sort of bullet point list or a diagram or a drawing or something that allows people to understand what they should do in a process and what they shouldn't forget. So as it happens with design thinking, but also other approaches like universal design, for example, there is this sort of 1, 2, 3, or maybe 5, or sometimes even more steps approach that allows designers to, let's say, orientate themselves to have an idea of what they should do without forgetting about important things. And in design thinking, we know there are phases that are really, really important. For example, when you brainstorm or when you do need finding, well, those are stages where it is really the moment when you interact with the users, with people, with the stakeholders, and is where not just the idea takes shape, but really is where the understanding of the problem takes shape. So I think it's important to have a few steps that allows you to focus more on, not even on the outcome, but more on the process and the people, rather than just having a great idea for a great product.
Right. Yeah, thank you. It just came up with my mind that what kind of perspective of design do you want to explore, or do you want to see in the near future?
Well, as you know, Yuki, that's a difficult question because it's sort of hard to forecast. It's sort of hard to predict the future. I think we can do that by connecting the dots, by looking at what happened so far, how, for example, the communication of the word design and its meaning has been developed in the last 50, 100 years. So if you think about 200-300 years ago, the word design wasn't even used, for example, in the Western culture as it is used now. And I'm sure in the Asian culture, there is definitely a reference to that as well. So I think we can really see, we saw in the past few decades, I would say in the last 30, 40, 50 years, really a strong use of the word design together with the word human, people, universal, inclusive, transgenerational, design for all, barrier-free design. And when we talk about design with another word, another adjective close by, we tend to use a word that is more, let's say, human design or people design or user-centered design, you know, with a reference to the real people. And I think what we could say for the future is that we are not going to do, we are not going to have a wrong prediction if we will emphasize that when we design for people, we design with people, and what is designed is designed by people. So we have, I think, this understanding now that if we continue to keep people, and when I say people is really real world people, real people, we will not make big mistakes, let's say. And
right.
I'm telling this in a era where, you know, there is AI, there is machine learning, we have the metaverse now. I mean, we have a lot of things that are very much algorithm based, but behind there are still people, right? So
well, finally, thank you very much for joining our team as an advisor. We are so pleased and excited to have you in our team. And would you give us to Japanese audience any words?
Well, first of all, I'm really passionate and I really appreciate a lot Japanese culture because it's ancient. It's an ancient culture with that influenced a lot the world. And well, I think my message is probably to look at the future by remembering your past. I think when we design, in the end, as I said before, it's similar, right? We have to understand what we have done in the past to make it better, or maybe just to improve it if we don't have to completely make it better. So it sounds like a very common message to say, but in the end, this is what happens and what helps us human beings to do and to predict for the future.